How can I return him to the United States? Like, could I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago, and they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that?
Hi again, everyone. I'm Ali Velshi in for Nicole Wallace. We're coming up on 5 o'clock here in New York. Just a few weeks ago, that's what we heard from Donald Trump. A total abdication of responsibility for the man wrongly deported to El Salvador, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, saying that it was all up to the Salvadoran government to release him. Yet now, in a new interview with ABC News marking his 100 days in office, Trump is singing a different tune.
Came into our country illegally.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
But the court has ordered you to facilitate that.
I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers that don't want to do this.
But the buck stops in this office.
No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
Supreme Court says what the law is.
That's a remarkable admission there, that he could get Abrego Garcia back, but he won't. And then he blamed it all on his lawyers. As the New York Times described it, quote, Mr. Trump's comments not only undermined previous statements by his top aides, but were a blunt sign of his administration's intention to double down and defy the courts. The judge handling this case, Judge Paula Zenas, this morning ordered a slew of new deadlines over the next 2 weeks for discovery in the case. She did so after denying a new motion from the Trump administration that had requested to further delay discovery. Meanwhile, a second judge today strongly rebuked the Trump administration in another high-profile immigration case, that of Mohsen Madawi, a Columbia University student, green card holder, who's been held in an ICE facility in Vermont after he was arrested earlier this month during an appointment for his process of becoming a U.S. citizen. Today, Judge Jeffrey Crawford ordered Madawi's release on bail with some harsh language for the Trump administration, drawing parallels of Trump's broader crackdown on immigration to the Red Scare and McCarthyism. Outside the courthouse after his release, Madawi spoke out against the administration.
And I am saying it clear and loud. Yes. To President Trump and his cabinet. Yes. I am not afraid of you. Yes. For anybody who's doubting justice, this is a light of hope, a hope and faith in the justice system in America. What we are witnessing now and what we're understanding is exactly what Dr. Martin Luther King have said before. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
And that is where we start this hour with staff writer for The Atlantic, Nick Miroff. His focus is on immigration. Also with us is immigration attorney and former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, Alan Orr. And here with me at the table, New York Times editorial board member and MSNBC political analyst, Mara Gay. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being with us. Mara, let's just talk about that for a second. I certainly, if I were on a visa and I had been thrown into a detention facility under threat of being deported, it's hard to come up with the I'm not afraid of you, but that's an interesting message that he came out and told the administration he believes justice will prevail.
It's not only an interesting message, it's a message that holds a lot of power and resonance and sets an example for some of our institutions that have failed to stand up to Donald Trump. What we see with dictators and authoritarians around the world, and what we've seen here within, even the past 100 years within the United States, especially in the Jim Crow South, is that you actually have to stand up to dictatorship and authoritarianism. And when you don't do that, when you start to strike deals, as some law firms have or some universities have, the authoritarian never stops there.
Right.
And so that's why the example of Harvard University is so powerful, the example of media organizations that are refusing to get rid of their independence and they're holding fast to it is so important. And that's why we're seeing courage from individuals like this, which is especially stunning because these are
they're vulnerable
people. These are not U.S. citizens. They are non-white. humans in the world, and that's a difficult thing right now when faced with the Trump administration and its agenda. And so I think it's an example, and it allows others to say, you know what, yes, together, because of course people can't do that on their own, if people stand together, Donald Trump and Trumpism is not, it's not infallible. And I think the courts are playing the key role here, which is to say, no, Donald Trump is not a king. He may want to be, but as long as the courts keep doing what they are doing, which is to allow the wheels of justice to turn, Donald Trump will look more and more isolated in his behavior as someone who is not acting as a president should in the United States of America, but is acting as a would-be dictator.
Alan, let me ask you about this as an immigration attorney, because there's so many moving pieces to this. Whether you're Mohsen Madawi or you're Abrego Garcia, you have rights. Donald Trump is trying to paint a picture in which American citizens have rights and nobody else in this country has rights. People have rights, and they have rights to due process. And if the government feels that someone is an actual threat, not a perceived threat or a dissenter, they have an ability to prove that in the court. And generally speaking, the American government doesn't win against you if that's true. What's going on here? It's just unusual to watch that the government is doing things that don't seem to be legal.
Right. So I think we need to go back to the Constitution, because the Constitution determines what all of these branches are supposed to be doing and not doing. And we yesterday had a posting from UCIS on all social media basically saying that if you're a green card holder, then you're a visitor, which sort of speaks to Mr. Malawi, which if you're a green card holder, you're a permanent resident, and that's far less than just a visitor in the United States. That's someone who's been here for a very long time and who's done considerable things to sort of get that green card. But with Mr. Garcia, let's sort of set the table that we're looking at, the chessboard, right? First, you go back and you pull this Aliens Act from a very dark time in our country, not even within centuries of where we are right now. Then the court, not saying that's appropriate because it's not a wartime act. There was, so questionable about that. Then there was an injunction about the planes leaving. So if you would have stopped the planes, you wouldn't have all these individual cases. And then on the third level of play right here, it was the Trump administration that granted him the ability to remain in the United States. And it's that same administration that went back and violated their own rules. Because if he wanted to deport him, he could have deported him because there's a process for it where you get due process. No one in the immigration field is saying you cannot do deportations. You just have to go through the correct process. And that's what the president is refusing to do in all these cases. So with Mr. Garcia, it seems very political. And against all of these students who have been here for a very long time, it's super political and hurting our economic background, because those foreign students bring $43 billion a year to this economy.
And Nick, this is interesting, because the argument specifically with respect to the students, let's put it beside Abrego Garcia for a second. The argument with the students is that they are essentially they're dissenters. They have views that are not aligned, and same thing with the universities. They have views that are not aligned with that of the administration, which is wholly inconsistent with what our founding fathers did and what the Constitution of this country holds.
Well, that's why we've seen the administration rely on this very obscure provision in the Immigration and Nationality Act that basically affords the Secretary of State this extraordinary ability to determine that someone, even if they're a legal permanent resident, that their presence here is somehow, detrimental to the foreign policy interests of the United States. So they're really reaching, deep into the recesses of the law to try to use these authorities, get these students out, but they're not winning in court, and their record so far has not been a good one.
That thing that Nick is talking about, this obscure thing that the Secretary of State can do, it talks about the fact that you might say or do something in the future that's contrary to the objectives, the foreign policy objectives of the United States. It's weird. They don't even feel the need to necessarily prove that you're a threat. We've seen them try, right, but they seem to be trying. This administration seems to be trying more in the court of public opinion than they are in court.
Well, first of all, what they're doing is they're looking into the reason this is an obscure law, the 1798 law, is that no other president has tried to use it, because essentially it's so arcane that the belief for generations has been that there is nothing in the spirit of our modern democracy to back it up. Right. And there are a lot of obscure laws in not only the U.S. Constitution, but in state constitutions across the country that are no longer in use, in common use. And this is why. So this is cherry picking, and it's all part of this unitary executive theory, right, I believe, which really holds that the president, they're not three co-equal branches, but that the president really determines the law. And anyone, again, who has watched Schoolhouse Rock knows that that's not actually what we have agreed upon in this modern democracy. So there are a lot of obscure laws that any of us might choose, if convenient for us, to draw upon. That doesn't actually mean that they should be functional. And so I think that will be, they are testing the courts. And the Donald Trump, the Trump administration has every right to test the courts, but it doesn't mean that it is appropriate.
Right.
It's not appropriate, and it's going to be up to the courts to set that boundary. And the scary thing is that Donald Trump is defying court orders, and he's now arguing over language. So this language about facilitating release of detainees who never should have been deported to begin with, that is where I am the most concerned, because now essentially Trump is daring the Supreme Court to say, tell me what you really mean.